Okay. Yo, everybody. I'm back again with the NetherKast. Introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Razor. How's it going?
I am Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die. What's up, guys? I'm Shad.
That is a great movie. I love watching that movie.
Haven't seen it in far too long.
Yeah, it's been a while for me too. Maybe I'll put that on the list or something.
It's a classic. Never gets old. Anyway, so last time we talked about MK1, well, original MK. I guess that it's worth noting, yeah, Mortal Kombat 1, as it's called, or Mortal Kombat 12, is officially dead. And what do you have to say about that?
Press S to spit.
Rest in piss. Don't give a shit. Not my problem. I'm glad you're dead. Pick one.
Yeah, that's like the Joker in Batman '89, where he
Yeah.
that mob boss. He goes like, you know what? I'm glad you're dead.
Oh, God. It's just my favorite movie of all time. And yes, that's exactly the imagery I was picking from when I selected that particular sentence. Oh, now I don't ever have to think about it ever again.
Yep, and apparently, rumor has it they are making Injustice 3. Watch them kill support for that after
Well,
like 3 months.
so here's the thing: is that Ed Boon at the reveal event for MK12 said we started out making Injustice 3. We're making it an Unreal Engine 5. It's going to take 7 years to do. So that's too long between games. That's why we're making MK12.
Well,
So the entire time they were making 12, they have another team in the background that was working on Injustice 3 first,
But
and is still doing it.
But the thing I say is, wouldn't you think MK12 would be the Unreal Engine 5 game?
No.
Why? When you can just shovel it out based on the popularity of the brand name and
here's
reap the
what I
rewards.
think. Here's what I think is that they had just made MK11, and the way they did it at the time was one game of this, one game of that, one game of this, one game of that. So they jumped straight to Unreal Engine 5 because it was time to upgrade the engine, and that was the newest version of Unreal. It was only in the middle of development that they went, wait, our knowledge of Unreal Engine 5 is, this is going to take longer than we thought because it's a new engine. So they backpedaled to Unreal 4, a less complicated or maybe more similar to their previous games engine. So that's just why it worked out the way it worked out.
Yeah, but I know we all know how it'll go. Ed will say, we're going to support this game for years.
Mm-hmm.
Nope, it'll be the same amount of time as usual.
They say it every time. I mean, the reality is so obviously the amount of support that MKX and 11 both got was enough to justify supporting them for longer than they did.
Yeah.
But that's not the case with this game. This game is dead because it undersold, or at least its DLC did.
Well, I do think the plan was to support MK11 for longer, but COVID happened.
That could be the case.
But
honestly, I just wish it would not take as long to develop DLC characters if they'd stop doing things like variations and gear,
Yeah.
If it only took as much work to make a character as it did in MK9, then we could have like 2 or 3 times as many characters.
But nothing can be done now, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad that 12 is dead. I didn't like it. There's a reason that DLC underperformed. It was not good.
Yeah, and hopefully they've learned their lesson, but who knows?
Honestly, I haven't checked the numbers. I think 12's initial release is still considered successful. But I'm pretty sure it has sold less than 11 did.
Yeah.
So the game in general is not as liked. And 11 is not a particularly liked game from a gameplay perspective. Like 12 is considered to have better gameplay.
Yeah.
But with MK games, the thing that sells is like the single player content, story and characters and stuff. And just the constant rebooting and the whack AI designed looking costumes, I would like to believe are what have turned people off in general from 12 compared to previous games.
Yeah.
I too would like to share that belief.
But anyway, I think we've talked about MK12 enough. Let's get into talking about what we think went down with MK2, because that's the first stream.
The only question on my mind in terms of NRS's current output is what percentage of Injustice 3 will be comprised of Batman characters. Do you think it will be 90 or 95?
95.
Yeah.
Well, here's the trick, is that if you play your cards right and you have more characters show up in Batman stuff until they become Batman characters, like Deathstroke didn't used to have a single thing to do with Batman. And now he's basically considered a Batman villain, which means you get more Deathstroke and stuff. So if you like Deathstroke, it's working out for you.
All right, MK2. Let's not beat around the bush.
Anyway, okay, so let's talk about the MK2 comic first, because for the most part, I'd say it's the canon beginning. Like, it shows you what happened at the end of MK1 with Johnny Cage being rescued by Raiden, like in the when the island was exploding.
Yeah.
The MK2 comic is sort of what I would define as mostly canon,
except for
the
the
parts of it that, like, I was about to get to that.
There's really only just the one little nitpick, which is that Scorpion basically does his arcade ending before the tournament has even started.
Wait, you're not that guy. All right, I guess I owe you. Let's go to Outworld.
Which, like, obviously, I think you have to take these things as though the game is the primary source. Like, that's the A canon, and the side material. If there's a contradiction, then the game supersedes the comic.
Yeah.
But since that's the only contradiction, really, it's not a big deal. And I do like that Tobias put it in there, actually, because, you know, it used to be debatable whether or not that Scorpion subplot even happened at all. Putting into the comic, like, the timing of the event may be wrong, but at least you know that in Tobias's eyes, this definitely happened. And that's good for Scorpion's character.
I mean, I never looked at it as being debatable. Like, what sealed the deal for me was the Scorpion ending in Ultimate MK3, where he sees Sub. It's like, oh, wait, no, I promised to protect this guy last time.
Yeah, I mean, and
like, if a future game references that kind of event, it's like, oh, you know that part at least happened.
Yeah, you and I definitely have always felt that way. We've talked about this before. The thing is that other people on message boards would go, but it never comes up in MK4, and he's right back to attacking Kuai Liang. That's weird, and I get it, but it's like,
it is weird.
My hardline stance is that if you don't say something has been retconned, then it hasn't been retconned. Scorpion's motivations just changed. He did what he did in MK2 and 3, and now he has a different reason to go after Sub-Zero and 4.
The problem with MK4 is, honestly, that it's kind of underwritten, and you don't really get good reasoning as to why he believes Quan Chi. You're just supposed to go, oh, okay, he tricked him again. Sure.
Yeah, 2 and 3 happened, and Quan Chi just got Scorpion to go after Sub-Zero again. It's not that complicated.
Yeah. Anyway, well, I think one of the bits I like is that when, like, Liu Kang returns to the Shaolin Temple destroyed, I actually like how, he returns to it destroyed, where else, you know, in more modern tellings, like in Shaolin Monks and MK9, he's present when the attack happens.
Yeah, I mean, they do that because they want to have, like, fight scenes happen during the attack. I get that, but the story is just better if he walks in and is surprised to find the place in ruins and everybody dead. It's like an emotional gut punch that you don't get if he experiences it in real time.
See, like, back before the days when Raiden just teleported everyone everywhere constantly, you were kind of expected to understand that, like, Liu Kang's journey back home from Outworld was,
You mean Shang Tsung's Island?
well, yeah, sorry. Well, yeah, it's Shang Tsung's Island is neither here nor there, but, like, it's supposed to take a while, He's got to take a boat. He's got to, like, walk or get a bus or whatever all the way back to these isolated Shaolin temples.
I mean, even in Scorpion's Revenge, they acknowledged that to get home from the tournament, they took the boat.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
like, there's plenty of time for them to drag Shang Tsung before Shao Kahn and, have him give his plan and Shao Kahn to go, oh, okay, all right, fine, let's do it. Let's antagonize them. And so, yeah, Liu Kang is supposed to come back and find his shit wrecked.
There is actually
friend's dead.
There is actually like a weird timeline thing here of how long did it take for everybody to get home, because Liu Kang kind of walks straight from the tournament back to the temple and finds it in ruins, and then goes straight from there to MK2. But Johnny Cage, his bio and endings say that as soon as he got home, he had time to start making a movie about the tournament. And it's the movie is basically almost already done, because he goes to the tournament to get sequel ideas and films the sequel in his arcade ending.
Well, the thing I love about in the MK2 comic, Johnny Cage's film crew is basically Ed Boon and the MK crew.
Oh yeah, they're
Yep.
John Drew caricatures of the team.
Yeah.
Like, I think Vogel's in a panel. Or no, Vogel was they named a special forces agent after Vogel, didn't they?
No, that was Steve Barron.
Oh yeah, that was Barron. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
Vogel
he gets eaten off screen by Melina, if I'm remembering right.
Yeah. Steve Barron does indeed. Like, the fight cuts off screen and then Jax finds his bones, which implies that he got eaten
by Melina.
Yeah.
Those MK2 fatalities, man, they were supposed to be taken at face value for the most part. She sucked that guy up and threw up his bones.
Yeah.
Outworld magic, baby.
Yeah. Well, like I said, the comic's not like doesn't show you that. It's like, oh yeah, that's what happened. It's like I guess that's Tobias being more subtle about the violence.
Okay, yeah, I brought up the scene for my own edification on my computer screen. He's when the Outworlders come to attack Johnny and invite everybody to the tournament, Johnny is filming a commercial for Cage Cologne. And it says right on the like clacker when they go action, it says director E. Boone. And then there's a panel of the behind the scenes crew, and you can tell one of these guys is Ed because he has the biggest eyebrows. And the guy working the camera has John Tobias's little mustache. You can tell that's supposed to be him.
Yeah.
And there's a guy with a ponytail saying, "They're wrecking my backgrounds." I think that's supposed to be Vogel or Goski.
Well, I think Ed's the one who says "cool" when he sees the fighting.
Yeah, because there's like the matte painting Johnny and this girl that he's kissing in the commercial are standing in front of starts like getting ripped up by electricity as a portal opens.
Yeah. Well, I do love that. Jax is. I think Jax has a good introduction where he's like he finds like Johnny in the water. Like,
oh yeah, I really love the way that like the comic starts and how everything sort of logically leads together. Like the boat, to the island in the first tournament, which made up a big chunk of the MK1 comic, often gets adapted because there's basically a sequence that's exactly like it in Enter the Dragon. And when the 95 movie adapted the game, it took a lot from Enter the Dragon because of course it would. So you have to have the boat in there. But there's never been... Well, first of all, there's only ever been one adaptation at all of the MK2 story, and that's Battle of the Realms.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, there's not a lot of opportunity out there for people to, like, adapt the MK2 comic book. And they pretty much have not done so. So, like, the boat is basically written in stone. Everybody knows about the boat. But not many people know that, like, the island doesn't even explode at the end of MK9. Like,
They just skipped over that bit.
yeah, but like the whole sequence of everybody escaping the island as it's collapsing, I think it is important because it's like, you know, it's an opportunity for some action and some like tension. It's like, you know, most of the Resident Evil games end with a ticking clock where you got to get out of somewhere before it explodes.
Of course, that I do wonder if the island
Any-
explodes, why is it still around in Deadly Alliance? That's what I didn't get.
Well, my assumption is that when he quote unquote collapses the island, he just kind of sends it back into Outworld. And then
It's never been like,
you know,
sent underwater or anything. It's not. I've always looked at it as it's not completely destroyed, but it's in ruins. And
yeah, there was earthquakes and explosions, and if you went to like Shang's palace, it's probably rubble. But the landmass is still there, and it sometimes teleports into Outworld, sometimes teleports into Earthrealm. It's not always, you know. This is something that's sort of vague because they always say the island is between the two realms, and that sometimes makes people think that it's not in either one, that it's in a pocket dimension. And the truth is, it's in both. It like teleports back and forth. Sometimes it's in Earth, sometimes it's in Outworld. So if you're looking for it, if you're trying to sail there and you're in Earthrealm, sometimes you won't find it, and it will seem as if the island is gone. But if your timing is right, you can in fact return there, even though Shang Tsung, quote unquote, collapsed it.
Yeah. Let me see something.
But like the idea that in the process of escaping it, Johnny ended up like floating on some debris, and Jackson, the army, sailed up in a boat and found him. I think is like, it's the perfect way to introduce Jackson to the story, because he should be trying to find Sonya anyway, right?
Yeah.
He's been trying to like follow her radio signal or whatever, and we see that in various adaptations, and it's like, because she's on the island, like, she can't be found on like satellite or radar or whatever you're trying to do. So like, Jax has been sailing around looking for the island and can't find it until after the tournament is over, and then he finds whatever there is that remains, which in this case is Johnny.
Yeah.
And I think that's a clever way to, like, that's a good way for things to progress naturally. Because
Also, yeah.
the alternative is that, like, a lot of times these days they have Jax be on the island and attend the tournament because he was captured.
Yeah.
But that doesn't really make sense because he doesn't get to fight in the bracket, nor should he. So
yeah.
If you're not going to use him there, then you shouldn't have him there.
Yeah.
Once again, we must remember MK9 is a hyper condensing of 3 entire games worth of storyline that just cuts and takes liberties where it has to in order to just get the story done. It's a weakness.
If you moved Jax's introduction, you wouldn't actually be adding or subtracting any running time from the length of story mode. You'd only be moving it from one place to another.
Yeah. One thing, what I was going to say was, one thing, a little detail I like about the beginning of the comics is that Raiden and Johnny Cage are wearing their MK1 costumes, which is a detail that NetherRealm wouldn't bother with today.
Yeah.
I mean, to be very fair to them, they remember that Raiden was wearing a retro costume around earlier time periods in MKX. I'll give them that. It was nice to see that.
I would argue it was the wrong one. Because
yes, you don't like the MK1 version. You prefer
it's not
the
that I
blue.
don't like it, it's that flashback takes place during 2. He should have a blue apron on.
It was in the wash.
Good. I don't know 40K lore. Yeah. But it's but yeah, that's a little detail that NetherRealm wouldn't really care about today. You know, how many times would they change?
I mean, they would have him in a different costume. It just wouldn't be a retro skin. It would be something different, like when everybody comes back from the past in MK11 and Scorpion is wearing Bryan Singer X-Men pants.
Let's not talk about what NetherRealm doesn't do or wouldn't do right if trying to adapt it, because I honestly don't give a shit. I'm at the point now where the fact that Raiden was even wearing his MK1 costume at all is like, oh, that's nice of them.
Yeah.
That's how desperate I am. That's how...
Yeah, that's that's how they get you. They lower your standards until they're
Yeah.
rock bottom. But
back to the comic.
I just want to say that I really like the way Jax is introduced in the comic, that he sails up in a boat because he's looking for Sonya and he finds Johnny instead.
Yeah. And I forget, he takes Johnny like hostage, and Johnny, it's like,
they interrogate him because he's a suspect in their like missing agent scenario here. Like, all they know is that Sonya followed the Black Dragon gang to a weird underground fight club in the middle of the ocean. They found a Hollywood actor there. That's suspicious.
Yeah. So, after that, we see Shao Kahn. I think we get what's basically the opening of the intro of Mortal Kombat 2, where like Shao Kahn's on the verge of executing Shang Tsung.
Yeah.
And I don't think I think the explanation the comic gives for why he restores his youth is so he could pass through the dimensional gate again or something.
Yeah, there's actually some weird fuzzy lore that's no longer like acknowledged here about the idea that Shang. So this sort of goes back to like in the MK1 and 2 days, it was not clear about what Outworlders were and how the two dimensions worked. Earth and Outworld?
Outworld was much more of a kind of like an astral plane, a more spectral place. They were much more explicit about the fact that they were crossing dimensions.
Yeah, they were almost like evil spirits. So like if Shang Tsung traveled to Earthrealm, he had to like have a mortal body. And at the end of the tournament, like that body died when he like collapsed the island. And so like if he's given a new body, then he can travel back to Earth. But that doesn't really make sense, because if his body died, then why is he an old man in ripped clothing?
Spectral, spooky ripped clothing.
He has battle damage. If he quote unquote died, then why does he look like he just came from the island?
All of this Outworld as a astral plane stuff was just totally dropped by MK3.
Yeah, it was overcomplicated and never quite made sense. So instead, you just have to go, no, he jumped through a portal.
Okay.
And honestly, like his bio in MK2 explains why Shao Kahn gave him his youth back all you really need, which is that, well, if he lost, then he needs to be stronger if he's going to fight at another tournament, doesn't he?
I actually get the feeling that after John wrote the MK2 comic, he was probably like, no, all this spooky stuff, all this mystical dimension stuff, it doesn't really jibe, and they got what they needed to get across with the bios.
The other thing is that if you give the Outworlders like the idea that they're possessing demons, then you can't do that when you do the NetherRealm.
Yeah.
So, like, the NetherRealm, which is literal hell, it's an actual afterlife, that gimmick makes much more sense for them than it does for Outworld.
Very much so.
But yeah, one of the things I like about the scene is that we see Goro's dad, and that he's, pissed that Goro is missing and apparently dead.
Yeah. That's one thing MK9 just ignores, because Goro's just around for some reason.
Well, the other thing is that you'd have to make a model for Goro's dad, and they were, they had to make 30 characters already. And, they're trying to fill these crowd shots with gray ninja palette swaps and Scarlet's in there. And there's this Middle Eastern looking lady that was never explained and never showed up again.
Yeah.
You can't forget just how much of this stuff would require so many new assets and new costumes and entire set pieces.
Yeah, they had so much to do on MK9 because they're making the entire trilogy roster. And it came out unfinished. Cyber Sub-Zero's ending doesn't have a narrator or text at all.
Yeah, I mean, it's obvious what's happening in the ending, but it's
Quan Chi's 2 costumes look nearly the same. Cyber Sub doesn't even have an alternate.
One thing I don't get is why don't they have Quan Chi in his MK4 costume? That's what he's supposed to be wearing.
Well, because they reused his model from Versus DC Universe. That's why.
Yeah,
they were
deadlines.
They were in too much of a damn hurry.
I'm sure they would have done it had they had more time.
They've
said in the past that there's always stuff that they want to do, that they're working on, that they have to cut at the last minute. This has been the case since the arcade days.
And the tragic thing is that Mortal Kombat 9 is the most dev time they've ever had. It's the most generous WB ever was to let them cook and not release a game until it's done. And it still wasn't completely done. There's another thing. That game was supposed to have brutalities. The MKX style ones. Kano's is still in the code. If he did his choke move, their head would pop off.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, so after what was the reason the comic gives for why they can challenge them to another tournament? Because it was always Earthrealm won the last tournament fair and square. They didn't really need to accept it.
Well, they kind of, the idea they're trying to present is just, hey man, if Shang Tsung can open a portal and you'll piss them off enough to say yes, then it's game on.
Yeah.
And that's why the Shaolin Temple is attacked. It wasn't just petty revenge, we're salty we lost, so we're going to kill a bunch of people. It was to goad Liu Kang into be willing to accept a rematch.
Yeah. Also,
what Shang Tsung says is that any realm can exercise its right of challenge as long as it can breach the dimensional gates which separate it from the other realm. The trick is opening a portal. I could do it if, just made me a little bit stronger. And Shao Kahn's like, hey, Shadow Priest, is this true? Can we actually get away with this shit? And the Shadow Priest is like, it's a twist in the rules of the tournament battle. He is right about that. You can do this, although the Elder Gods don't like it if you do.
Yeah. He says that if you win, you'll have so much power that what the Elder Gods think doesn't matter. But if you lose, you'll probably be dead.
Yeah. Well,
he's confirming the rules, and he's doing a little bit of fortune telling.
Yeah. One thing I've always wondered is that when Liu Kang returns home and he finds Kung Lao, was Kung Lao the sole survivor of the attack, or was he just got there?
It's unclear if Kung Lao got there later. I don't think he was present for the attack. He picks up. The only reason he knows who did the attack is that they find a helmet from one of Shang Tsung's masked guards in the rubble.
Probably planted there to let them know it was them.
Yeah. Well, it could be that the monks tried to fight back and got 1 or 2 people.
Maybe.
Yeah. Well. What I think I want to point out is that with Liu Kang and Kung Lao, Tobias's intended interaction between them was that, Liu Kang was the speed racer to Kung Lao's Racer X.
Yeah. Kung Lao was always meant to be a mysterious guy who sort of was missing during the first tournament and emerges from the shadows.
Yeah.
To be hey, now that this happened, I'm mad. I want revenge. Kung Lao is the anti-hero one. He's the one with the darker temperament. Whereas Liu Kang is I should avenge the temple, but I can't take a life. That's fucked up.
Yeah.
Kung Lao is the one who's I'm going to cut people in half with my hat.
Yeah. Well, that was because they were it's they're taking revenge for the Shaolin. That was
there's actually there's some vagueness about that where that's Liu Kang's it's in his bio and ending. That's what his journey is. His internal character arc in MK2 is I want revenge. That's why I've come to this tournament.
Yeah.
But it's still, the idea of killing people still bothers me. So will I do it? Yes or no? And then a lot of people missed back in the day that there is an actual answer. Like he arrives at in his arcade ending, no, I'm not going to kill anybody. He struggles with it, but he ultimately, like, his morals win out.
Yeah.
Always remember, the screen didn't go dark when he did the cartwheel uppercut. Until MK2, where it actually does. I guess he's just not quite pulling his punch anymore because he's good and angry.
Yeah. He could turn into a dragon and eat people. He just apparently didn't.
Yeah. Well, I think what it's like, yeah, I guess we'll talk another real quick about Sub-Zero showing up in a business suit with sunglasses.
Okay,
Yeah,
let's just... Yes, it's a thing that happens. And I like the general idea, although I acknowledge that it kind of does fly in the face with what we know the Lin Kuei to be here and now. But it's important to remember that, like, the Lin Kuei are, in contrast to the Shirai Ryu, a clan that's trying to modernize with the times. Yeah, it's weird that they have a business card and Sub-Zero's wearing a suit, I'll grant that. But they're not ignorant of the modern world. They're not like clan of feudal assassins from, like, the Edo period.
It does fit the accurate to the times pop culture image of a hired hitman.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's not that the image of the Lin Kuei has changed so much, it's that the image of Kuai Liang has changed.
Yeah.
I think you mentioned this last time. Like it.
Yeah.
You would find this to be more acceptable coming from like Bihan.
Yeah. Like if
MK3 and 4 would like show that Kuai Liang is not really much for the way the Lin Kuei are currently doing things. So it's weird to see him going along with this and wearing the suit and passing out the card.
Yeah. Like, so the whole scene is that Liu Kang and Kung Lao are at the ruins of the temple discovering what has happened and vowing revenge. And then a jet lands and Sub-Zero comes out and he's like, hey, we saw satellite footage of what happened to you guys, which means my brother failed to kill Sung at the tournament. So that's my mission now, and I want to come with you. And so the Lin Kuei give Liu and Kung Lao a ride to go pick up Johnny and try to intercept Shang, because they know that if Shang attacked the temple, then he's probably attacking everybody who survived the tournament, and Johnny will be next.
Yeah, and that's
how they get invited to the tournament. But so, like, I like the idea of the jet landing and the Lin Kuei coming out and all that stuff. It's just that if Sector had come out of that dressed as, if he had walked out of the jet dressed as like Sung from the Turks from FF7, it would make a lot more sense to me.
Yeah,
Sector would look pretty good in a suit, honestly.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, Sector didn't exist as a character yet.
Well, that's the thing. Sector and Smoke are in the jet. Like, they don't say his name, but
there's a red ninja. There's a red ninja who's unnamed, but we all like to look at it retroactively as, that's totally Sector over there.
It's got to be Sector, because they were working on MK3 when this comic came out.
Maybe it was Ermac.
So maybe he did kind of sneak in Sector early. Who knows?
Yeah.
But anyway, so Jax and Kentaro have a fight, so that's why a lot of people think maybe they had another fight in the tournament.
Well, that's sort of the logic that I was talking about last time when we were doing MK1. I talked about how I would have Johnny fight Kano in the tournament bracket, because they had fought in the comic, and it's a Chekhov's gun scenario where you've set a thing up and now you have to pay it off, or it seems weird.
Yeah.
So there's like an establishing here that like Jax and Kentaro are kind of rivals because each one is the biggest, strongest member of their team.
We're jumping ahead a little bit here, but
that's
one of the things I was thinking about discussing later on, is like who fights Kentaro.
Yeah.
But
It's-
I forget, who does Katana fight in the at the movie theater battle? The battle.
We really don't see much of her. Like,
Yeah.
so the scene cuts to Johnny filming his commercial, and the Outworlders show up. Meanwhile, Jax and Agent Baron are in the lobby of the movie studio. Like, they want to interview Johnny some more, and the secretary won't let them onto set. And Jax is trying to be like, I'm a government agent, I'm just going in. And then before he gets the chance to do it, like, Johnny gets blown through the wall by a flaming skull.
Yeah.
And so Jax gets involved in the fight. And that's the point where Jax starts fighting Kintaro, and Jax like punches Kintaro through a wall, and they end up fighting outside. And when Shang is ordering the rest of the people who are with him, which is basically the entire Outworld team, you see like Kitana and Melina running into battle, and then it cuts away to Jax and Kintaro, and we don't see Kitana and Melina again until like the last page.
splash page.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, so I guess they were both killing Agent Baron?
I don't know.
There's a few agents around. I'm sure Katana was fighting one of them, and Melina took another one.
I would say what I wish Tobias had put in was like a panel of Liu Kang and Katana like seeing each other for the first time to establish their connection.
Yeah. Well, with a comic book, you've only got 20-some pages, so you've got to like be economic about what you get to show and what you don't.
So
I mean, if wishes were horses, there would be a Mortal Kombat 3 comic to accompany the first two, you know?
Yeah, we'll cover that next time.
Yeah.
Damn shame.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, I think after that, Raiden says, "Prepare yourself, mortals, for combat in Outworld." And it's like, okay, that leads us into MK2, the tournament.
Yeah, we get the whole bit of like Shang explaining the reason I'm attacking you guys was just to get your attention so I can invite you to another tournament. And Raiden is kind of like, why would we accept this? And you know, all the they don't they don't go into it quite as much as they do in 9. But the implication is obviously, look, Liu Kang and Kung Lao want their revenge, so they're gonna say yes. Jax wants to find Sonya, who's apparently in Outworld, so he wants to say yes.
And Johnny Cage wants to make a sequel to his movie. That's
but
there is
it's the idea that yes, accepting this challenge is tactically unsound.
Something that doesn't get highlighted here really is the fact that under the terms, and I think the instruction manual for MK2, at least on the home systems, covers this. It's like this is supposed to be this. What makes it worth accepting? What makes this worth their time? And like future things would take this up. Like I think Battle of the Realms does it too. Is the fact that this is an all or nothing affair. Like if Earthrealm wins this, there can be no further challenges.
Yeah, there is, like, they emphasize it in 9. They make it more upfront and clear, but it was present in the original MK2 story that the point of MK2 is to abandon the 10 in a row to win. This one is all or nothing. If Outworld wins, they get Earthrealm. If Earthrealm wins, Outworld cannot challenge anymore, and they're safe forever.
Yeah. But it's the whole truth was it was actually a diversion so they could do the real plan, which is resurrect Sindel on Earth.
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
it was
the
all
whole thing. The whole thing is just to distract Raiden so he doesn't sense that they've got Sindel's body in Earthrealm and they're bringing it back.
Yeah.
But like that is the thing. Like the comic is not super clear about it. Like if you really think about it, all they say is if Shang Tsung can open a portal, then he can challenge them to another tournament. And logically, that would mean restarting the cycle of 10. Like they'd be back to 0 out of 10 wins. And if they win MK2, then they've only won 1 time out of 10 and they still don't get out Earthrealm. So why would the Earthrealmers accept when they could just wait 50 years and do the tournament when you're supposed to do it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so let's imagine when they go to Outworld. I always imagined the portal stage was how they got to Outworld. That was the big travel point between Earth and Outworld.
Oh yeah, like okay, so we're leaving behind the comic now. We're actually getting into what we think happened, the way we see things now.
Yeah.
I mean, the obvious thing you could assume is that Raiden opened a portal for them.
Yeah.
Or Shang Tsung left a portal open for them. I kind of like the idea that... So this was back when Tobias was still writing, you were not supposed to open portals. It damaged the fabric between the dimensions, and it was the entire reason for the tournament is that the Elder Gods didn't want people to do that. You know, the whole idea of unbalancing the Furies. Unbalancing the Furies is a bad thing because it opens portals. It makes the fabric of the universe weaker.
Yeah.
And as future games would inform us, implying the weaker the barriers between dimensions would get, the stronger the probability of the one being emerging and waking up and doing all of existence as we know.
Yeah, they didn't...
one being wasn't a thing at this point.
Not at this point.
Not at this point.
Games...
I wish that Armageddon had mentioned this. The idea of that the reason the Crater fight is so decisive for the universe is because that's how bad the dimensional walls have gotten.
Yeah,
because
like,
when they
it don't seem to be implied but not stated outright.
Because all they actually say in Armageddon is if you get this many people with superpowers in one place fighting each other, their powers will rip apart the dimensions. And that doesn't really make sense when you think about scenarios like when Shao Kahn invaded Edenia, both sides had a bunch of wizards, and it was a whole war. Shouldn't that have caused Armageddon?
Well, we'll cover Edenia's fall, I guess, in MK.
But yeah, I just want to, like, if they had said, well, the universe is weaker than it's ever been because we've had so many breaks in the rules and people opening portals all the time. The past 6 games have led us to this because people keep, tearing at the dimensional walls, and now they're weak. Whereas they were not so weak 10,000 years ago. If they had said that, the game would have made more sense. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that I've always taken as canon, even though the game is incredibly sketchy and neglectful of details like that.
Yeah. But, like, so what I was getting to is I don't think Raiden should just willy-nilly be able to open a portal or teleport the Earthrealmers to Outworld whenever they need to go there. I think they should have to, like, find a portal. And I like the idea of them going back to the ruins of Shang's Island to get to Outworld, because I feel like Sub-Zero and Smoke need to go there anyway, because they're trying to figure out who killed Bi-Han. And so they maybe want to find and examine the corpse. Yeah. And we know that you should be able to go to the island, because that's where you fight Smoke Jade and Noob Saibot in MK2, Goro's lair.
Yeah. This is something I guess we can bring up now. Like, Smoke, I don't think in either Razor's or my version of MK2, the way we see it in our heads, Smoke and Jade are not part of the tournament. They're probably poking around Goro's lair for separate reasons, and I like to believe that they ran into each other personally.
I have mentioned before, I think Jade was like a late surprise entrant into the tournament because of the question mark on the arcade ladder. But I do think that mostly she was just like noodling around in the background. That the reason you fight her in Goro's lair in my head, and the reason she's like peeking out at people in the living forest, is because she's going after trespassers, people who are not part of the tournament. So I actually think Smoke and Jade would have fought each other in canon.
For MK2, Smoke, I think, is probably poking around Goro's lair and the ruins of Shang Tsung's Island, trying to find Bi-Han's body, trying to find evidence of the murder itself. Jade, I think, I've always looked at it as she starts out being dispatched to Shang's Island to try to find where the fuck is Goro. So, same reason. Is this guy actually dead? Because no one knows where the hell Goro is at this point.
Yeah. Goro, canonically, Goro like has been hiding in a cave or something. Like
he's off in the wastelands.
He snuck off and became a hermit and is trying to like make people think that he's dead because he's so ashamed that he lost that he can't face his own people and doesn't want to go back home.
He's off licking his wounds.
Yeah. So I guess we'll cover like they probably go to Shao Kahn's Coliseum and like I guess I always had the idea that since like Kano and Sonya were probably locked up in the dungeon, and I'm gonna guess that Katana went down there and asked her, it's like, who is Earth Realm's strongest warrior? And she probably told him like Liu Kang, who was the one who beat Goro and Shang Tsung. That's how she found out about Liu Kang.
I mean, I would imagine Shang Tsung himself would have like brought up Liu Kang's name when he was explaining how he failed to Khan and why Khan should not kill him.
but okay, well, I mean, Katana probably finds out about Liu Kang because I think it's generally assumed that he is the Earthrealm warrior she gets in contact with when she's like being like a double agent.
I'm just saying, I think it's common knowledge who Earthrealm's champion is, you know?
Yeah.
I've always kind of looked at Shao Kahn's fortress, palace, whatever you want to call it, to be something kind of like akin to the way that the old Star Wars novels depicted Jabba's palace. Like, rumors are always flying here and there, and people hear things about other people, and the whole thing's a hive and a cesspool of scum and villainy.
If I was adapting MK2, like if I was doing a story mode or a movie or an anime thing, I'd have multiple scenes that's just different characters interacting with each other and gossiping in the halls of the palace. Like, whenever like you get into things like Melina has a secret relationship with Baraka, you probably like you the way you work that into the plot is you have like Kitana and Melina talking to each other when Shao Kahn isn't like around to hear them, and like don't let Father find out that you're you know screwing around with that guy.
Oh, speaking of, while we're here about talking about Baraka, something I noticed that like I haven't really considered or thought about, because we know these things back to forward, but like sometimes we gloss over the little details. I used to think that like I thought for the longest time that Baraka speaking in the third person was a Malibu thing, the Malibu comics, but no, he does it in the MK2 comic. Tobias himself has Baraka go, Baraka do this and Baraka do that. And
yeah.
I'm surprised that didn't survive to the present day, but in 90s comics, everyone talked in the third person. I thought that was a little neat bit of trivia, lost to the ages.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, there's a
so I guess well, one I want to go to is Scorpion, how he gets involved. I think it's like, he's probably like in the Nether Realm, like he's probably thinking, I should feel better about killing Sub-Zero, but I don't. I feel empty.
Well, it's interesting because somehow Scorpion finds out that there is a guy named Sub-Zero at the MK2 tournament, and in his head he's like, I thought I killed that guy. Maybe the reason my soul can't rest is because somehow he survived.
He is under the impression he has to literally believe this is Bi-Han.
Yeah,
until he finds out different.
The thing is, if you know that you burned a guy's flesh off and left nothing but bones, how?
Well, Scorpion probably figured if I can come back to life, he probably could somehow.
Yeah, but if you did succeed at killing him and he just came back, didn't you still get your revenge? Like, how many times do you have to kill a guy for it to feel satisfying?
This is one of the things where I think you really have to like work Quan Chi's silver tongue into the equation. Like, we're like, oh, maybe it was a different member of the Lin Kuei. Many of them do practice ice techniques, something like that.
So we talked a lot last time when we were talking about MK1 about how I have written an MK1 fanfiction. The MK2 fanfic, never finished it. Still, work in progress. But one of the scenes I have written out is the scene where Scorpion finds out that there's a Sub-Zero at MK2. and I have Noob Cybot be the one to tell him, because I think that's hilarious.
I always assumed Scorpion looks at Noob's like, there's something familiar about you, but I can't quite figure it out.
The original reason I did that scene that way was just because I didn't want Quan Chi to say it himself. Because then, when Scorpion finds out that it's not Bi-Han, he could call Quan Chi a liar and would have more reason to question him in, say, MK4, where Scorpion needs to be gullible enough to go along with what Quan Chi is saying. I didn't want to give him too many reasons to doubt the guy, because then you're like, why are you just believing everything he says? You know he's lied to you before. So I didn't want Quan Chi to do it. So I'm like, if Quan Chi sends a servant to do it, then Scorpion could always rationalize it in his head as the servant had incorrect information, or the servant lied to me. And if you make that servant Noob Cybot, if Bi-Han is telling him, hey, I don't think you finished the job. I don't think you got Sub-Zero. You Shirai Ryu guys really suck at finishing the job.
Yeah.
It's funny, but like,
yeah,
I don't know. Noob Cybot and the entire arc of Bi-Han's like destruction and his fall and his rebirth is such a serious, kind of dark, gritty matter. Like, I've written some MK fanfic too. Like, one of the things I wrote was a chapter covering what we were just discussing, where like Smoke runs into Jade, and after she leaves, I have Smoke kind of sitting around, kind of sensing that there's someone or something else kind of watching him in Goro's lair. And he thinks he sees a pair of like cold blue eyes in the darkness, but it's just gone. That's the full extent to which I'd involve Noob Cybot in Mortal Kombat 2. I'd hint at him, but I don't think he should actually be showing up until the MK3 period.
I do. Well, this is kind of this is his only speaking scene that I gave him. And it is a short scene. Like, I do try to play him as mysterious, and I do like take it seriously. Like, it's dark irony, you know, that he's sort of like goading Scorpion into going after his brother.
When it's me, like, if I'm handling Noob Cybot, I like him to be as creepy as fucking possible. Like,
I would definitely do a scene where, like, when you get to the stuff with Smoke and Jade in Goro's lair, the fact that there's all these like blinking yellow eyes in the background, all these like Oni that are hiding in the shadows of the lair. If one pair of eyes is blue and it's just staring at them and they don't notice it, that's great atmosphere. That's a good way to use Noob Cybot in MK2.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to give him that one scene because him and Scorpion so rarely get to interact, you know? The only time they've ever actually had a speaking encounter with each other in a game was 11.
And it's so surprisingly blasé and passive-aggressive. You wouldn't think they had the history that they did.
Yeah, I feel like Scorpion gets a better scene if you fight Sector instead.
Yeah. Well, I would have. One thing I wanted in the midway timeline was for Scorpion and Sub-Zero to have to team up against Noob Cybot. That was one thing I wanted.
Yeah, I think it would be nice to get that. Like, it would probably have to happen in something set after the 3D era.
That's something that I've given a lot of thought to, and a lot of
maybe during Armageddon if you're lucky.
I hesitate to talk about this because, as Razor knows, Greg, I don't know if you know, but like I sat down one day and over the course of like 2 months, I fleshed out and I wrote entire bios for Mortal Kombat Armageddon with the mindset that this would be the last game of the original series. Razor disagrees with that and believes that there should be more, and I can't fault him for that. But for me, it's just kind of a jumping off point.
Yeah, I just think
it was the means of emotional closure.
I just think one game wasn't enough to close all the dangling plot threads that they still had left after Deception.
It's true, but
yeah.
I mean, if I had to, if like looking at Armageddon as the final game, if I had to have someone deal with Bi-Han at the very end of it, I think the way that I would probably go was to have Scorpion be like, because Scorpion during Armageddon is this kind of really angry, nihilistic, I want to destroy the world mindset from the one scene he gets with Taven. So I think I would have something or someone pull him back from the abyss and have him kind of be the better person and put revenge behind him once and for all and kind of walk away. I think I would leave it for Kuai Liang to deal with him.
Yeah. Well, I think we can talk about that when we get to Armageddon.
Yeah. Look, can't fucking shut up. It's just not possible. We have opinions.
Anyway, so MK2, we were talking about. So Scorpion somehow probably gets to Outworld, and he enters the tournament. So I guess we'll talk who fight too, because Scorpion sees someone fight Sub-Zero fight somebody, but not kill him, and I like to imagine that was Reptile.
Oh, we all like to imagine it's a Reptile. Actually, even the comic kind of foreshadows this because we talked earlier about like Jax punching Kentaro through a wall. Let that sink in, but like. In the comic, Sub-Zero tries to jump Shang towards the end of the issue, and he just bounces off, and because the Reptile's right there in front of him, invisible, and they're kind of foreshadowing a kind of future fight between the two of them.
Well, yeah, because
Reptile, getting with this.
If Reptile is Shang's bodyguard, and Sub-Zero's reason for going there is his mission is to assassinate Shang, then he needs to fight the bodyguard. I talked about Bi-Han doing it in my MK1 fanfic, but like Kuai Liang, has inherited his brother's mission, so he's trying to do it too. So he's got to go up against Reptile. And to be fair, MK9 does have Sub-Zero's first fight in the tournament be against Reptile.
Yeah. I feel like it's one of those all but canon things that Sub-Zero fought Reptile. But he spares his life, and this is the event which gets Scorpion to realize this is literally not the same dude.
Yeah, the 9 version doesn't make a point about the fact that Sub-Zero...
He says, I would kill you, but that's not my purpose here.
Yeah, I'm letting you live because I'm in a hurry and I'm trying to do something else. And then Scorpion shows up and immediately... Scorpion wasn't there, he didn't see it. Quan Chi teleports him in from the Netherrealm after... And Scorpion goes, what is this? Why am I here? And looks over and he's like, wait, you're not Bi-Han. I can tell from your face.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
It's
so close,
It is. It's right there. Just write one sentence different. And it's accurate to MK2.
Fucking maddening.
Yeah.
But yeah, the idea is that Scorpion teleports to the tournament because he heard Sub-Zero was going to be there. So he's probably standing in a shady spot watching matches, and he sees Sub-Zero beats Reptile and not kill him, and he's like, Bi-Han would never let somebody live. This is suspicious.
And I remember in my fanfic of Mortal Kombat 2 that I wrote many years ago on fanfiction.net, I had Raiden be the one to tell Scorpion, yeah, that's not the same Sub-Zero, but I don't know if that's...
Well, I would have him, so here's the thing. If we're going to talk about, tournament bracket matches...
Yeah.
We really don't know much about who fought who, canonically. Yeah. But we do know one match for sure. In both Sub-Zero and Scorpion's arcade endings, it says they fought each other in the tournament. Scorpion wins and lets Sub-Zero live. And doesn't tell him why. So Sub-Zero's like, why did my brother's killer not kill me? That doesn't make any sense. What's going on? And he doesn't know. So the idea there is, I think while they're fighting, Scorpion would... he's already started to figure out, I don't think this guy is Bi-Han. He's just somebody else wearing the outfit. Somehow he does get to the point where he finds out, oh, Bi-Han has a brother. That's who you are. So they must have talked to each other while they were fighting each other at least a little bit.
Yeah. I do think Sub-Zero did have that, okay, you killed my brother, I'm going to kill you in response.
Yeah. Because the other thing is, when Sub-Zero comes to the tournament, he doesn't even know for sure that Bi-Han is dead. That's, again, Smoke is probably trying to find the body to find evidence. Is he dead? Why hasn't he come home from his mission? And also, if he is dead, who killed him?
And perhaps, ironically, Smoke runs into Noob, not knowing that's beyond.
So Sub-Zero. Well, I think Noob was probably just spying on them and didn't let himself be seen because he blends into the shadows and is creepy.
Yeah,
he's just keeping an eye out for Shinnok.
Yeah. But I think the idea is, so Sub-Zero is in the tournament. He beats Reptile, and he's waiting for his next opponent. And in comes Scorpion, and Scorpion probably tells him, "I thought I killed you. What the hell is going on here?" And that's where he gets, "You are the one who killed my brother?" And he's like, "Oh, he was your brother. That's what's up."
Yeah. Well,
sorry, my bad. Guess I kind of owe you, don't I? All right, I'm your protector now. Wait, what?
I don't think he said that part out loud.
Well, I did.
No. It's the whole angle about him like being Sub-Zero's protector is not like an acknowledged thing between the two of them.
Yeah,
he would not say it out loud. It's like, I actually owe this guy.
Yeah, there's like, just like he just disappears. He just teleports away. Like, he beats Sub-Zero. Shao Kahn goes, "Finish him!" And Scorpion is like, nah, and goes back to the Nether Realm. And Sub-Zero doesn't see him again until the invasion.
Actually, one thing I had happen was that during like the final chaos through the tournament, which we'll get into, that's when Sub-Zero tried to get Shengen, but Reptile like knocked him out, and that's when Scorpion did the little the thing for the comic.
I mean, that's I think Sub-Zero, I think Scorpion was like, when he vowed to protect him, it was under the assumption of like, I'm gonna see this guy later. He's already, I have kicked him out of the tournament. I don't have to worry about that anymore. I'm going back home. Scorpion probably went straight back to the Netherrealm and stayed there until UMK3, at which point there's some point in the final battle where Sub-Zero is with the other Earth heroes running through the streets of the city, fighting Shao Kahn's armies, and he gets in trouble at some point, and all of a sudden, there's Scorpion standing in front of him, blocking an attack, and he's like, what the hell is going on?
Next time.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I guess what I want to talk about is, I guess we'll talk about how Liu Kang, Kitana, and Kung Lao figure into all this, because it's like, Liu Kang and Kung Lao are probably having a conflict over how they should handle getting revenge for the Shaolin.
Yeah, I always imagined that there was, like, arguing between them, like, Liu Kang probably fights somebody, and Kung Lao is like, "You went too soft on them, man," and Liu's like, "I'm not gonna kill anybody."
And Kung Lao's like, it's like, we're not Shaolin anymore.
We have to avenge our brothers.
Yeah.
We're getting into, like, who fights Kintaro territory. MK9 and Shaolin monks both kind of seem to imply that, like, Kung Lao gets pretty far in the tournament.
Yeah.
Well,
and this is
well, we're talking about, again, like, the fact that we don't really know who fought who. Like, we know Scorpion beat Sub-Zero, and that's kind of it until Liu goes against Kintaro Khan at the end. Maybe not Kintaro, like, fuzzy.
Well, I like to imagine Liu Kang and Kitana had the fight at some point.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say, is that you kind of have to do the scene from the 95 movie, but here. Like I said, Kitana doesn't super fit into MK1 because her whole character arc is supposed to happen during MK2. So the idea of her, like, meeting in secret with Liu Kang, there was probably a point where the two of them fought each other in the bracket, and Kitana, like, not let him win, but let him win, you know?
Well, I think I would like to imagine they had their meeting before.
I don't think she needs to let him win. I think he can just beat her. But I think she needs to show some, like, somewhat that she's more testing him than trying to kill him. That's what I mean.
I think the way Scorpion's Revenge did it was better than how MK9 did it.
Well, MK9 kind of had him treat her like a child, and it's weird and uncomfortable.
Yeah, but it's more like she just goes, "All right, I yield," and it's like it was better in Scorpion's Revenge. Not saying it was perfect,
but the point is, I think you have to have a Liu and Kitana fight in the MK2 bracket
Yeah. Well,
You
I
do.
mean, and Melina
I also-
like spying on Katana because because it's suspicious that she's meeting.
Yeah.
with
So
Kenpachi.
we know a couple of fights that happen during MK2 that aren't part of the bracket. We know that Katana has to kill Melina.
I like to
Yes.
imagine that was on the pit too. Like that was how Melina died. Like
Well,
Katana
Shad and I have talked about this on the Lost, that he likes to imagine it happened in the Living Forest, I
Hang
think.
on. I'm gonna leading up to this, and because I wanted to bring up specifically what the fuck does Kung Lao actually do?
Yeah.
Because he can't fight Baraka, because if he fights Baraka, Baraka is dead.
Absolutely.
He's
And
not
that's
during
actually,
MK3.
that's the thing, is that a lot of fanfic writers and a lot of like people, when you talk on forums or Discord, theory crafting, a lot of people like to imagine you get a Kung Lao and Baraka fight.
because they're basically rivals.
Yeah, they have been treated as rivals in several games in the old timeline. And it's specifically because Kung Lao wants revenge for the attack on the Shaolin Temple, and Baraka led that attack. But I agree with Shed. You can't actually have that fight during MK2 because Baraka can't die there. He's in Trilogy.
Well, no
He's in Trilogy, he has his own bio, but I'm killing two birds with one stone here, so I'll explain. There has to be a reason that Melina is confronting Kitana over what she perceives as her wavering loyalties and also her own jealousy.
Yeah.
Kung Lao can't get to the end of the bracket to fight Shao Kahn. He also can't die
Yeah.
because he's there during MK3, which is when he, quote unquote, is supposed to die.
Yeah.
So my solution to this is that at some point, Kung Lao starts like making demands of Shao Kahn. Give me Baraka. I want Baraka. You're in my home, Earth Realmer. You'll fight. You're in my home, Earth Realmer. You'll fight who I dictate you will fight, and you will fight against my daughter. Kitana, in my version of events, fights Kung Lao. This is after she's fought. This is after she's started to. Liu Kang started to make an impression on her, and the moment she wins this fight, because Kung Lao is too reckless and he's distracted. His heart's not in this fight, and he just wants to get it over with. And Katana's way too good at this, and this is also an opportunity to really showcase how good Katana is. She takes him down, and Shao Kahn orders him to finish him.
She doesn't do it.
She doesn't do it. She's having, she's had these suspicions for a long time about Shao Kahn, and she's really impressed with Liu Kang. And he's looking at her from the sidelines like, "Don't, please don't. I know you're better than this." So she doesn't, and she walks off. So Kung Lao loses to Katana, and this is where Melina's like, "What the actual fuck, sister?"
Yeah.
And starts following her.
I like where he head's at. I would do it a little bit different because, first of all, I think Melina is probably always spying on Kitana. I don't think she necessarily needs much prompting to be suspicious. I think that just out of jealousy, and also I think that's part of her job. Like Shao Kahn has always paired the two of them up specifically because keep an eye on your sister. She's a little shady sometimes.
Yeah.
But like,
she doesn't need a reason, but this would be like a good fucking reason to take action.
I also just feel like Melina has to catch Kitana talking to Liu Kang anyway, That's established. But the other thing is that I actually have Shang Tsung be the one to eliminate Kung Lao.
But
I always felt that so you have this story of Shang Tsung was given his youth back because he wasn't strong enough to win the previous tournament. Shao Kahn, if you want to build up the villain to be more threatening, to give the heroes a challenge, if you want to convey that Shang is stronger now, and also we know Shang makes it to like near the end of the tournament because the last three are him, Kintaro, and Khan.
Yeah.
Shang has to beat some people, some of our named characters. And this is a problem because how do you explain people not getting fatality'd? This is the hardest part. this is the hardest part of like trying to theory craft who fought who in MK2 is
If an Outworlder wins a fight, there is no more corresponding Earthrealmer.
yeah, there shouldn't be. So how do you explain why people are able to return in the sequel? What I have is so I have Shang beat Raiden because straight off you want to establish A, Raiden's a little weaker in Outworld, and B, Shang is stronger now. He ain't nothing to fuck with. So you sort of if Shang takes out Raiden in an early round, it's a little bit shocking for the audience. It makes them kind of stand up and go, "Oh, that's where we are now." Okay. So, and also, Raiden can, like, forfeit at the end and teleport away, you know? And that's sort of a good excuse for, like if he starts to feel like, oh, I think I'm gonna lose this. I can't let him have my soul. Okay, I'm out. I tap.
Well,
I'm just fucking hearing the Shao Kahn audio samples. You suck.
The thing
Yeah.
I've always wondered is what's Johnny Cage doing during all this? Because it's like,
I would sort of have Melina,
Yes.
Johnny,
Literally fucking yes.
because then you get to play around with like her flirting with him and him being into it, and then she takes the mask off and suddenly he's not into it.
yeah. Well,
And she doesn't kill him because she really wants that D later on.
Yeah. You gotta like do a comedy bit to get Johnny out of the tournament without killing him.
Yeah. Well, also, wasn't there something that said? I remember there was a radio commercial for MK3 that said Kentaro killed Johnny Cage or something.
Yeah, but obviously they retconned that in Trilogy to say Motaro did it.
No, like that never got that far. It's
Yeah, no, it was cut content. I think somebody found it on as an Easter egg on a CD or something.
Yeah.
It was like Ed Boon giving a funeral speech, and they like pitched his voice down to sound like some kind of creepy evil creature.
Yeah. There's somebody sobbing in the background.
Yeah, but like the idea that Johnny was killed by Kentaro is definitely not actual canon.
They knew that was going to be something that they had to do.
Yeah,
because of the entire situation with Dan the Man Piscina, Lord God, Emperor King of the universe. They knew he had to die, but they pushed it off from Kentaro doing it to beefing up
Extermination
to do it. The Extermination Squads did it, and they were even going to go the whole 9 yards and show us that picture of Motaro lifting up Cage.
Yeah.
And being about to kill him, which, people only discovered in the last couple of years.
Really? I've never seen that.
I'll show it to you after.
It's funny, actually, because they blacked out, like they shaded out Johnny's face on the sprite, because, again, we can't use Dan.
I'll send it to you in the Discord. It blew my mind when I saw it. Send
it in our chat.
It's the single most amazing piece of cut content. And a lot of the time when they cut content from the games, I'm like, I get why they did this. I get why they did that. I totally understand. That makes a lot of sense. With this, I'm like, what are you fucking crazy? This shit should have been in the game.
Yeah.
Here, give me a second. I'll send it to you.
Okay.
Yeah, that is why I would say it's better to have Motaro and the Extermination Squads do it than Kentaro. Because if you're going to have Johnny die, Kentaro isn't really able to do anything with that added prestige because he's already lost by the time you're hearing about Johnny being dead. Kentaro's already defeated. MK2 is over. But
yeah.
It sells the danger of the Extermination Squads and how bad the invasion is that they've already gotten to somebody, Like right at the start of the game to be told, they've already gotten Johnny. That everybody else that's how much danger you're in.
But so what's Jax doing? I guess he's the last one.
That's actually I was gonna get to that. So, but first I want to I'm talking about like Shang Tsung getting some wins, and the reason I started bringing that up was because Shad talked about how he'd have Melina eliminate Kung Lao. I would have Shang eliminate Kung Lao because first of all, it sort of sets up like Kung Lao has to fight the Deadly Alliance in a few years.
Yeah.
And this way, if you have Shang has beaten him once, now you've sort of set a baseline of this is how much stronger Kung Lao needs to get.
Yeah.
And it's like a Chekhov's gun thing. It's like,
And it's
we
still
have
not
a
enough.
history. I fought him before. I know I need to get stronger to beat him.
Yeah.
And
it
also,
still
you can have the excuse for why he doesn't eat a fatality in that one is Shang Tsung is the kind of asshole who would go, I already have your ancestor's soul. He was way better than you are. I honestly think if I stole your soul, you'd make me weaker.
Yeah.
And
But-
then he really feels bad. Then Kung Lao is really like, just rub the salt in the wound, Sometimes that's better than a fatality.
Yeah. And I think with Jax, it's like some people have Kentaro be the one to rip off his arms, but Jax never.
Well, we know for a fact that he had his arms in the original timeline. Like those are the biotics are sleeves that he can put on and take off.
Yeah.
But if you are, doing your own take on it, or you're adapting MK9,
obviously Jax loses to somebody, but he doesn't. He doesn't lose his arms.
Yeah, I do think if you're going to have Jax lose his arms, losing it to one of the Shokan is more satisfying than to Ermac, because Jax gets to fight the Shokan a lot in things. He almost never actually fights Ermac. He's never going to get revenge for that. Why was it Ermac? That's just random. It's just some guy.
You have to keep in mind the fact that Jax is literally supposed to be the strongest person alive in Earthrealm.
Yeah,
he's the strongest man in the world, and he has to go up against something that makes him feel inferior, and Kentaro is the candidate for that.
Yes, you have the story of the Biotic Arms originally was just that Jax knew he needed to get even stronger because of what Outworld has. I'm the strongest guy on Earth, but I'm not the strongest guy in Outworld, and I know that now. I've seen proof of that. And the proof of that, if you're going to pay off the setup from the comic, is that the strongest guy fought the strongest guy. Jax fought Kentaro.
And Kentaro beat him.
Now, here's the other thing, is that there was a Threshold once put out a sort of strategy guide type thing on CD-ROM.
Raiden killed Kentaro or something.
Yeah, it was a tie-in piece of media that had stuff from the movie and stuff from the games. And it had a bio for Kentaro that said the reason he's not around in MK3 is that he got killed by Raiden.
Yeah, but that was never confirmed in the games.
Yeah, no, this is Threshold, this side media. It's not. But I sort of like the idea, and the logic is I have seen people say, or this was 20 years ago on old internet forum stuff. Somebody out there said, and I don't know if they were theory crafting or if they thought they had more information from the Threshold CD-ROM. They said that what happened is that Jax was trying to free Sonya from her chains in the arena towards the end of the game.
That was probably happening while Liu was fighting Shao Kahn.
Yeah, Liu beats Shang, Jax does this, then Liu fights Kahn. So Jax is trying to free Sonya, and Kentaro attacks him to stop him from doing that.
Just lost to Liu as well.
I don't know if Kentaro fought Liu, is what I'm saying.
The arcade kind of implies that, but that's
it never does. Actually, it does not. Obviously, the ladder has Kentaro be before Shao Kahn, but that doesn't mean that Liu is the one who fought that fight.
Okay.
It just as long as the order of events is that Kentaro fights somebody after Liu fights Shang, you're good.
Yeah.
So I think this probably happened here is that it's the end of the tournament. Liu is fighting people, and so Shao Kahn is watching that. Everybody's kind of distracted by that. Jax is trying to sneak over to Sonya and free her. Kentaro gets him. Kentaro beats him up then. And the reason Raiden fights Kentaro and blows him up is to stop Kintaro from killing Jax.
Yeah.
So, like, oh, he's about to eat a fatality. Exploding uppercut.
It is. I have to say this because Kintaro's always been one of my favorite guys, and I've always been in this camp that like wants him to survive and whatnot. But I also have to acknowledge that it really doesn't matter because it's not like he ever actually does anything ever again.
Yeah,
You know,
see, that's the thing.
I like to look at his presence and Goro's presence in Trilogy PSX version as contributing to the notion that they were. At least Kintaro was around during the invasion because Goro's still off fucking licking his wounds somewhere.
See, that's the thing that I'm stuck on is that technically Kintaro is in Trilogy, and so is Goro, but canonically
They're not.
Goro is not in Trilogy. So Kintaro probably wasn't either.
Probably not, but
Kintaro is therefore missing from every game from MK2 until Armageddon. Where the hell has he been? It makes the most sense if he's not in all those games because he's dead.
Yeah.
it does. And MK2 is a game that's very light on deaths, except for that one, which we didn't actually get around to talking about. We kind of trailed off and went on tangents. I do have to acknowledge that it doesn't matter, but someone does have to take out like Kintaro, and I guess I'm okay with giving it to Raiden, but I also like the idea that like Jax wins the fight and comes out of it like really badly injured.
Yeah.
Like Kintaro broke his arms or something, and I don't know, he managed to like get out one last like gotcha grab that fucking shattered the rest of his bones.
Yeah,
and he's in no shape to fight anyone. That's the way I think I like the.
I mean, you could do it that way. I just think like if you're gonna set up the story of like Jax is having like, I don't even want to call it confidence problems because that's how it's played in Defenders of the Realm and Annihilation, and they play it as though it's this mental hang-up he needs to get over because he'd be stronger without them, and that's dumb.
I mean,
he's being practical. He's being smart. He knows he needs an upgrade. And that upgrade does factually make him a better fighter.
I mean, I feel like if you were the strongest person in the world and you went up against something like that, you would be a little bit shook. Yeah, I don't think it has to be a mental hang-up, but I would actually definitely add a little layer of, Jesus, I really was not expecting that. Even as good as I am, I'm not ready.
Yeah,
I just make myself ready.
I think it works better if he loses the fight. And if you're gonna, if Kintaro beats the strongest guy, well, you know what's stronger than the strongest Earthrealmer is probably a god. I also, in my head, I think you can do a characterization thing here, where like Kintaro knows that he's up next in the tournament. Like he's supposed to fight Liu Kang, and Shao Kahn is like, stop getting distracted. I need you to fight this guy in an official capacity here. This is what's important. But Kintaro is going, the god challenged me to a fight. He's a god. I have to know. I think I can take him.
I can beat a god.
Yeah, like that would be a great scene.
I like it. It's nice.
All right. Well, I guess one thing we didn't talk about is like Liu Kang and Katana have their meeting, and obviously that's where their connection starts to form.
Yeah.
How do you think it went down? Like, how do you think they started like falling in love or whatever?
Well, I always kind of picture in my head that, and I don't know why I'm picturing this, because logically, and the way it's shown in Battle of the Realms, is that they are kind of guests in the kingdom, and so they would probably have been given rooms in Shao Kahn's palace. I always kind of imagined that they wouldn't want to stay there, that they'd rather camp out in the wasteland at night.
Yeah.
Because, like, if you're sleeping in a bed in Khan's palace, there's probably an assassin with a knife coming for your neck in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
It's alien.
I like the idea that like between rounds, like at night in the tournament, they are like camping out around a campfire and they've got sleeping bags and stuff. And you know, like in the middle of the night, everybody else is asleep and Liu Kang's like sitting poking the fire and like thinking deep thoughts about like the weight of the responsibility on his shoulders or whatever the hell.
Yeah,
And then it's like, psst, from the bushes.
that's Katana.
That's Katana.
One thing I
And
always, yeah,
the other thing is that, like, if I was going to like do a full fanfic or story mode or movie or whatever about this, I would try to work in some of Shaolin monks if I could, and it's difficult because Shaolin monks does not fit with the story of MK2 at all.
I was like, you mean Kung Lao going, "Oh, your girlfriend," and Liu Kang.
Yeah,
going,
no, it doesn't. Like, the idea of these two guys running around from location to location in Outworld beating people up does not fit the premise of a martial arts tournament. Like, the two things can't really coexist. But I think you can actually borrow pieces from it if you justify them as Katana going, look, I'm on the enemy side. I know you don't trust me. Come with me and let me show you some evidence that I'm on your side. And
Then
so,
Luke-
like, she takes Liu Kang to, like, the flesh pits to show, like, this is where Melina was made. This is how I know she's not my sister and she's a clone. And maybe, like, you can even work in, like, Reptile is guarding the flesh pits and you can get, like, a fierce Liu Kang and Reptile fight here. And then you can have, like, maybe Katana's like, Reptile, stop fighting. Let me show you something. Look at all these dead raptor bodies in Shang Tsung's lab.
He's lying to you.
Yeah,
No.
yeah. And that's part of Reptile's story. How did he find out? You can put that here. And then maybe Katana leads, here, come with me to this castle across the sea in the wasteland. This used to be my dad's castle, Jared's. Here's where he died. Look at this blood stain.
They'd have to take quite a walk. It would take a while.
Yeah, no, if this would be like multiple, like, night 1, I'm taking you here. Night 2, I'm taking you there. Do you trust me now? Do you see where I'm coming from? This is my backstory, and now you know. And then they grow closer, and that's how you get to the romance and shit. And probably, for some of these trips, Kung Lao is tagging along, because he's like, I'm watching your back. She's gonna kill you, man.
Yeah.
One thing I always imagine, like, what if the good guys like when Katana came in, like they like captured, like they took her, like, can we trust you? We don't know if we can trust you. I would imagine it took a while for them to warm up to her or something.
Yeah, I just imagine, like, that's why she's waiting until everybody but Liu Kang is asleep, because then she doesn't have to, like, talk to Raiden and Johnny and Jax and be like, how do I convince you guys to trust me too? I'm outnumbered here. Let's just have a one-on-one.
And that's why she does it with Luke, because Luke can say, I trust her.
Yeah, and the other thing is, she's got to keep it on the down low because she's trying to be sneaky and not get caught. And so somewhere in here, Melina has to be, like, following them too.
Yeah. This is where we're going to get back to what we were alluding to earlier. Like, Katana kills Melina. She's like the confirmed fatality with the K
like
of Mortal Kombat 2.
The only person who we know for sure dies in MK2 is Melina, and it can't have happened in the tournament.
Yeah. Well, one thing I've wondered is, when does Shao Kahn find out that Katana has turned on him? Does she, like, side with, like, good guys?
Well, that's sort of the implication that we're given in UMK3 is that he doesn't really know until somebody finds Melina's body. And, like, there's evidence that Katana is the one who killed her. So I kind of imagine it as, like, when they get to the final rounds of the tournament, at some point Katana has overheard Shao Kahn, like, talking about the fact that they're going to invade anyway, even if they lose.
Yeah.
And she has told the heroes this. So the heroes are kind of, like, in a rush when it gets to the final fight with Shao Kahn. They're like... John Tobias actually said once on Twitter that in his head...
Nobody won.
The final fight with Kahn didn't happen. The tournament just fell apart because the Earthrealmers found out that the invasion was coming.
Which is somewhat unsatisfying.
I don't think it actually works, because even though the tournament is a distraction...
There has to be a conclusion.
The heroes still agreed to it, so legally, by the rules of the Elder Gods,
they have to finish it.
If they forfeit, Khan can invade Earthrealm without having to trick them.
Yeah.
That would count as
They
Outworld
do-
winning.
They do need to win, and like MK3's intro is like frustrated by failed attempts at taking the Earth. Attempts, plural.
There's also the fact that
tournament battle.
in Deception, Liu Kang's grave has 4 victory medallions.
Yes. Those are
So
supposed
we
to
know
symbolize his
Liu Kang and Shao Kahn fought, and Liu Kang won.
But what I'm wondering is if Shao Kahn was like, "I'll let you win this time, boy," but just so you know, or something like that.
I always try to work in things that seem like things from the game that don't have to be canon. Like, the question mark on the arcade ladder doesn't have to mean anything, but I like the idea that Jade was inserted into a late round, like, probably because Scorpion won a fight and then ran away. Somebody needs to replace him in the bracket.
Yeah.
But, like, she didn't have to be in the tournament. Maybe she wasn't. I kind of like the idea that the question mark counts. One of the things that I like the idea that it counts is when you beat Shao Kahn at the end of MK2, he turns to stone and explodes, and that definitely isn't canon because clearly he's not dead in the next one. But what if Shao Kahn actually sent a decoy to fight Liu Kang because he went off to prepare for invasion stuff? He's like, look, this is the real plan. I don't need to bother with this. Win or lose, who cares? So maybe Liu Kang was fighting a statue, and that's why it turns to stone and explodes at the end.
All right, so the turning to stone thing. This is, as to why that is there, this is a thing that anyone who, like, looks at MK's cut content knows. This was a cut defeated animation for Goro in Mortal Kombat 1. He turned to stone and blew up. It was a cut animation thing for Kintaro. And this probably ties into the notion that they're like spirits, that early version of Outworld.
It definitely feels like some mystical stuff. Like, when this species dies, they become a statue. It feels like some Greek myth kind of thing.
Now, as much as the idea of Shao Kahn turning to stone and blowing up is kind of cool, and Razor knows this, I'm not quite ready to give the man Doombots. I can't do it.
I just feel like it's something Kahn would do, and it's sort of, you have to have an ending to the tournament. You have to have Liu Kang fight Shao Kahn and win. But in my head, I'm like, so what happens next? Like, Shao Kahn is just sitting on the ground, like, doing the Peter Griffin with his knee, and they all walk away? That feels weird. Like, Shao Kahn needs to, like, exit the scene somehow when everybody goes back to Earthrealm. What if he was never in the scene in the first place?
I don't know.
It's like a weird storytelling thing. It just feels awkward to me to have that fight end with, like, a knockout. Because, like, MK2 tries to do that, or MK9 tries to do this thing where Liu Kang does think he's killed Shao Kahn. He puts his fist through his chest and people carry away the body, and they're like, there is a catharsis there, even though it's fake, of, like, I don't know, it just feels like there'd be some kind of weird confrontation. Like, in MK1, when Shang Tsung loses, he has a response to it. He goes, well, fuck you, and makes the island, makes an earthquake.
Well, I imagine it's Shao Kahn might have just ordered, like, everybody, kill them all.
Yeah, exactly. If Shao Kahn loses that fight and is still awake, he would do something.
Yeah.
I imagine that, like, after Liu Kang knocks his ass down, he just starts laughing. He acknowledges the defeat, but this is where you tie in the fact that they have to come back to Earthrealm from this tournament knowing that Shao Kahn is plotting an invasion. And this is where Shao Kahn's like, oh, you beat me. You knocked me on my ass. Good job. Well done. Oh, you won the tournament. Good job. Guess what? It doesn't matter. And he snaps his fingers, and then, like, all the fucking armies start fucking coming over the hills and shit, and he just points at them, kill them. And Raiden just fucking opens an emergency portal or whatever the hell, and they beat feet back to Earthrealm. They know what's about to happen.
Yeah, actually, one thing I will like about the NRS era with Shao Kahn and Liu Kang's interactions, I do like how Shao Kahn calls Liu boy. I do like that because that's something I always imagined he would do.
We're shifting gears, but I never actually got to complete the thought earlier about how Kitana killed Melina.
Oh,
yeah.
Razor,
in my head, I think what happened was like Kitana knocked Melina off the pit too, and then like Kitana briefly reached for her, but couldn't do it, and Melina had the pit 2 fatality death. That was her death.
Well, I'll let Chad go first.
Well, this is one of those scenes that, like, I've never sat down and, like, written out all of Mortal Kombat 2 in brackets and events here and there and there and there, but, like, there are specific instances and moments where, like, a moment in the story, as we understood it growing up in the arcade era, felt so significant and so important. And Kitana killing Melina is one of those things. So I've always envisioned it as having happened in the Living Forest. Now, like, this is the result of, like, her spying on Kitana and Liu Kang having, like, one of their last conversations together, if not the last one. So I have Melina basically, like, come out of hiding as soon as they're done talking and, like, accuse Kitana of all this treachery and call her a traitor to their father. And this is the moment where Kitana's like, no, you know what? I've had my suspicions about you for a long time, or I know the truth about you, and it's time that I told you, because you don't seem to understand it yourself. You're not my sister. You're a horrible clone. Why do you have all these memories that I have, Whose teddy bear do you think that even was? Stuff like that, And it triggers kind of this complete psychotic breakdown Melina has. And she just goes completely berserk and, like, attacks Kitana, and Kitana just cuts her head off and, like, as a mercy kill, because she can't look at her and can't see her, like, can't get through to her, can't convince her to turn against Shao Kahn with her. It's a really emotional moment, and yeah, it just ends with, like, her forcing Melina to look herself in, like, a pool of water on the ground, and Melina just loses her shit and can't accept it and tries to kill Kitana, tries to complete her programming, tries to take her place. It's all these horrible events. And Kitana just avoids all these rage-filled side thrusts and screaming and clawing. And she just sadly just puts her out of her misery in one shot, just cuts her head off with a fan. And she's horrible. She feels horrible about it and just walks off. And out in the bushes behind a tree watching this is Jade. And that's why Jade's in the Living Forest in Mortal Kombat 2, is because she is spying on these events as well. And she is the one who, in my interpretation of things, because she has to choose between loyalty to her friend or her emperor in Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 at the beginning, chooses the loyalty to Shao Kahn, chooses to tell him, my best friend just murdered her sister.
So what do you...
Here's her severed head.
So do you think, like, Jade brings Kitana to Shao Kahn tied up to say she's a traitor or something like that?
I think she brings Melina's severed head to Shao Kahn as proof. Look at these wounds.
Yeah,
these incisions.
I think there's just, like, there's probably a sequence where, like, people are meeting in the throne room or whatever, and Jade presents her evidence, and Kitana just happens to be there and is seized by the guards.
Yeah. And I think, obviously Kitana at some point between MK2 and 3 gets captured and arrested. Because I think that's what they said, she was on trial or something.
Yeah. The high courts of Outworld try her for treason, and she escapes.
Yeah.
But, So I always sort of imagine the way the scene going down. The location doesn't super matter because the way I would have the death play out is that Katana would like feeling like sad about it would like give her a goodbye kiss, and it would be like maybe the deception version of the kiss of death, where it's like a poison that kind of makes you sick instead of like the cartoony expanding into a balloon thing. And that while Melina is like choking on poison, then Katana cuts her head off. Because those are the two fatalities she has in MK2. And the reason I combine them is that the just chopping the head off is kind of plain and boring. And I feel like the giving her a kiss isn't really there to work the fatalities together as some like cheesy fan thing where like, oh, I want to see both of them. It's because it's an emotional moment.
Yeah.
And she's like saying goodbye to like, even though she knows this person isn't her sister and is kind of like disgusted by why she was created, these two still were raised together for a certain period of time. They've fought together as assassins. They've spent time together, and there's still some kind of feeling there. So it should be when she has to kill her, it should still be like a bittersweet moment.
Yeah, because
I can see that.
And I sort of like, you could have that scene happen in the Living Forest or the Wasteland or basically anywhere outside the palace. I would put it on the pit too because it's easier to hide a body by throwing them off the bridge.
Well, that's what I liked. The idea is that Melina started to fall and she was hanging off the ledge, and Katana, she briefly asked Katana to help her, and Katana like reaches out her hand for a bit but pulls back saying, I can't. And because it's like, she almost wants to save her, but she knows she can't. That's how I always pictured it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the three of us can agree that it's a very emotional and heart-rending scene.
Yeah. You want that feeling. However it is, you execute it.
Yeah. Ha! Execute.
Pun not intended. But yeah, I think. Well, what did Tobias say about Katana and Melina? They're like Scorpion and Sub-Zero. They go together like peanut butter and jelly.
Yeah, I think that's just Boone sort of. He has said that he was sort of surprised by the demand to have Melina back in MK11, and he sort of. I don't think he realized that Katana and Melina was as important to people, much more than to some people. Well, Scorpion and Sub-Zero.
Well, I think Ed himself has said, yeah, they're kind of like our female versions of Scorpion.
Well, yeah, but he started saying that after 11 came out.
No, he said that, I think, around the time of Deception. He said that, like, Melina's trading, one of their trading cards, that, yeah, they're kind of like our female Scorpion and Sub-Zero.
Well, yeah,
that was always the intention, was that they were like, hey, Scorpion and Sub-Zero were like, cool ninjas, let's make girl.
Honestly, yeah, they are the female version of the palette swap. That is what they are. But in terms of, like, we have to have them on every roster, like we do Scorpion and Sub-Zero. He didn't start saying that until 11.
Yeah, but
because of the Twitter backlash.
I think in that case, I think he is aware that, yeah, they're probably up there with most iconic.
I will point out that until the NRS era, it was actually kind of rare to have both of them on the same roster.
But then
it's so weird. They never had a confrontation in the original series. Not once. Not after MK2, anyway.
Yeah, there's the gold endings,
and also, they're in MK2.
I mean, like a fight.
UMK3 together.
Well, my point is, like, in terms of like treating them the same way you treat Scorpion and Sub-Zero, Melina's a hidden character in UMK3. Neither of them were in Vanilla 4. Only one of them is in Deadly Alliance. Only one of them's in Deception.
And they're both in Armageddon. Everybody was in Armageddon. And only Katana's in versus DC. I don't know why.
Yeah. Melina gets left out of stuff a lot, and Katana was left out of Deception, and that never happens to Scorpion and Sub-Zero.
Except for Scorpion wasn't in Vanilla 3, but
Well, that was.
He was always going to be, though.
I'm going to tell you that Tobias has flat out said that was a sales tactic. They
Oh,
were
yeah,
making Ultimate while they were making Vanilla. It's like knowing a character will sell better if you make them DLC.
They intentionally kept Scorpion and Sub-Zero out to like artificially extend the life of the game. They were like, let's get the first wave of players in, then because we know they'll be frothing at the mouths for the ninjas, we'll put the actual ninjas in later on. It was very
literally DLC sales tactics. We know this, this will sell the thing.
That was basically how they did DLC back then.
Yeah. Ultimate MK3 is the DLC of 1995.
Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo EX Plus Alpha Ultimate Ultra Accent Core Edition. Third Strike.
Yeah.
I think I'm done. I don't think I have any more.
Yeah, I think...
I put the word championship in there somewhere. I missed it. Fuck.
Well, I think one thing I would like to imagine is that, Katana probably gets, I think, Liu Kang and Katana maybe have one last scene where Liu Kang's like, come with us back to Earth, and she says, I can't.
Yeah, I mean, she's got to overthrow Khan. She's got to get her kingdom back. She's got to save her people.
Yeah, she says, I'd love to go with you, but I can't.
But yeah, I think we know for a fact from the MK3 bios that the Earthrealmers knew there was an invasion coming before it started. Liu Kang and Kung Lao were trying to prepare for it. They were trying to put calls out to the White Lotus Society and be like, "Hey, everybody needs to get together. This thing is coming," and they just weren't fast enough. Jax knew that's why he gets the arms, because they came straight home to, they spoke to the government of like, we have intel that there's this threat coming. And nobody believed them because they're talking about magic alternate dimensions with dragons and shit.
Yeah. Oh, one thing we almost forgot. Jax also frees Kano when he frees Sonya.
Well, they were intending to arrest him and bring him back, and he just got free.
And
ran away from them.
Because it says Jax brings him back, but Kano eludes them, and he goes back into Outworld.
Yeah, it's a weird thing of they took him through the portal and then he ran back through the portal.
Yeah. And I guess he must have convinced Khan not to kill him.
Well, he does present his case of hey, if you guys are going to attack Earth, you need to know about guns. I know about guns, and I can get you some.
Whereas in MK2, in 9, they had that happen during MK2 and not after MK2.
Yeah, I think it's a little weird that Shao Kahn bought that. The idea of that he needs guns, because
I think maybe he was saying, "Look, I'm from Earth, so I know things about it you don't," and that could be.
Well, here's the point I want to make is that the idea of teaching them to use guns implies that there's going to be ground warfare when the invasion happens, and there isn't. Shao Kahn starts the invasion by stealing the souls of the entire population. There are only 8 people alive on the entire planet, and only Stryker uses guns.
Yeah.
Well, you can be generous and think about it in future terms. Earthrealm's not going to be the last place Khan conquers. If he can get in a future realm with guns, why not? What if Shao Kahn had a gun? Kano could be very useful in future invasions. He could.
He could.
Yeah.
I think Kano, it's probably very easy to buy that he would work his way into the good graces of the Outworlders, because he's such a scumbag. And you know that his loyalty can be bought.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the... it's just... But it's the whole... It's just... So basically Sonya is... she spends most of MK2 tied up in the courtyard, so not much going on with her.
This is, we were talking last time about having Sonya be taken captive during MK1, and...
Well, in MK9 they have it happen after MK2, after MK1, but it's like it works better how they did in the comic, where she just fell into the outworld after the tournament.
I'm not sure if I got the chance to say this, but like it was one of the reasons we were talking last time about the fact that like Razor would have had Sonya like lose a fight to Kano here and there, and then get taken captive. I'm like, I feel like she already gets taken captive like a few times already. So I've also been kind of desperate to give her that win. But yes, during MK2, she is in chains, and so is Kano. We actually kind of glossed over that part of the comic book where like Jax gets their signal, like even Kano's like, bring guns, bring lots of guns.
Yeah, and apparently Sonya and Kano were actually having to work together because they were like trapped in the outworld, so they were forced into an alliance. Yeah, we kind of glossed over that. But I think, it's funny. Was this around the time that I think there was like around this time MK2, wasn't there rumors of like nudalities or something? Or was that MK1?
It was.
I distinctly remember the whole nudality thing from my time in the arcades as a rumor that originated during MK2's period. It was around.
Yeah, I think the fact that friendships and babalities existed had people thinking about, other kinds of finishing moves are possible.
If I'm remembering right, I think toward in the MK2 ending screen, you have those like little under the whole Shao Kahn wins, all that text. There's a little bit of random red text at the very bottom. It's like, who was Ermac? Stuff like that. I think animality with a question mark was one of those things.
Yeah.
So it's possible that like those rumors about animalities and shit started before MK2, or maybe they were.
The other thing is that those little bits of text, like Hornbuckle Who and something. There was something about Jade, and those little text hints when you beat Shao Kahn were added in one of the last revisions of the arcade cabinet.
Yeah.
So there were people who were playing the game and didn't see those and were making up rumors, and the devs were hearing those rumors and put that in to like tease them and like play into the bit.
I can tell you that at the video store where there was an MK2 arcade cabinet where I grew up playing the game, the older kids, I remember that one of them had this big, thick, like printed stack of paper with all the special moves and all the finishing moves, and he would try to charge people like $5 to look at this fucking thing because it had nudalities in it. Like I remember peeking over it at one point, and allegedly the fucking codes for nudalities were something like up, up, down, down, left, Konami code shit. Like 25 different inputs. Press high punch and low kick at the same time. It's just a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah.
A bunch of bullshit stupid teenagers make up to try to coax money out of like the younger kids.
Yeah.
But this shit existed before MK3.
It was like as a kid hearing rumors that Luigi was actually in Super Mario 64, and you're like, oh, I want to unlock him, but there was no way to actually unlock him.
Just like you could save Eris.
Or you could get the
Just like you could recruit General Leo.
Or you could get the Triforce and Ocarina of Time.
Childhood game rumors are the best. I miss those days.
Yeah, now you can't really do that anymore, sadly. Actually, I'm kind of surprised they never made nudalities a thing, considering they've made everything else that was like a rumor a thing.
Well,
they have tastes.
The thing is that it's like
tattoo assassins and
well,
shit like that. That actually,
it's only in a teenager's brain that sex and violence are equivalent to each other.
Well,
adults don't think they are.
I mean, yeah, there's certain MK characters I'd rather.
The idea is, well, if they'll show gore, then they'll show titties. No, that's not how it works, man.
I even remember like there was specifically being like rumors of like which characters did what for nudalities. Like supposedly Reptile urinated acid all over you after whipping it out, or Scorpion out. And he pissed fire. It was like the friendships, like they all pissed something on you, and like Sub-Zero pissed on you so hard you shattered into like ice fragments because his urine was like just a solid jet of hard ice or ice crystals or some shit.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
Wow, that is But I guess that's part of the magic of video game discussion back then. You could make shit up and anybody would believe you.
Part of the magic of being a horny teenager, more like it.
Yeah. Well, there was one rumor that people told me about that I was happy was true. Was Star Fox 64. Like somebody told me, oh, if you do it a certain way, Fox's dad will come out and help out Fox. And I was like, really? And it turned out that actually was true. If you beat on the hard way, his dad's spirit like shows up to help him. It was like, huh, that was actually true.
Neat.
Yeah.
Slippy's dad.
Nice.
Well, no, it was basically like his dad was like the Obi-Wan, like he was guiding his son, like one last, like to help him out, like in Star Wars, like Obi-Wan guiding Luke in Star Wars as a spirit. Like that's what it was like.
It is really cool whenever those little rumors and stuff becomes fact, and all of your like thoughts and prayers and secret wishes about the game you're playing are justified. Like I really can't overemphasize just how amazing it really was when Ultimate MK3 came out and Ermac was real. That absolutely blew my fucking mind.
Yeah.
They did it. They really did it.
And then Rain became a thing.
Rain was a bit weird from the get-go. Like, if you looked at that life bar, you knew something was up.
Yeah. I think that was part of the beauty of video games back then. Just there was no internet back then, so it was much easier to just share stories and like go like rumors spread because there was no way to disprove it so easily.
Well, early internet was also kind of part of that magic too. Like,
yeah,
by 1996 or 1997, there was the Usenet groups and the Yahoo groups and stuff like that. And one of the things that I actually remember reading on those, this is like ancient history here. Like when I was in high school, I remember like illicitly using internet school time to like look at Mortal Kombat like Usenet groups and shit. And I remember reading that like the WaveNet version of Ultimate MK3's code to unlock Noob Saibot was by selecting Kano and doing the human smoke code, except you had to hold down and the low punch and low kick buttons along with block and run instead of high punch and high kick. This is allegedly how you would unlock Noob Saibot in WaveNet. I can't confirm whether or not that's the case. WaveNet is, for anyone who doesn't know, a version of UMK3 which was beta tested on like one machine in Chicago. The whole idea behind WaveNet was to actually let you play against people online through a complicated and expensive series of physical cables, which did not justify their actual cost to produce. It never got very far. The WaveNet ROM's still not been dumped to this day, as far as I'm aware. But yeah, early internet was part of that magic too, just learning about things. And I'd actually even argue that early internet was part of the magic of Mortal Kombat up through deception. Like seeing game facts, guides and stuff, and figuring out on MK Online like which coffins had this and that, and then people sharing information slowly but surely as people were playing the game.
I think in many ways we grew up in the best era of gaming.
That's a whole other question, which would require a full half an hour of discussion on my part.
Well, I'll tell you, we didn't have to deal with games as a service when we were kids, and AAA dev times and $80 games. Well, the NES had some wild prices. I got most of my games for $10-20 at a flea market.
I got Chrono Trigger for $100.
Yeah, that's another thing we don't have anymore. Rentals and flea market, like used games being cheap.
Yeah.
There are so many games that I played because I rented them at the video store that I never would have played if I had to pay full price for them, like all of the Mega Mans on NES.
Well, also, that's why games were so much harder, because that was their way of getting around rentals. That's because that was the way to combat rentals, because like, okay, if they beat it, they're not going to want to buy it, so... Or at least that's what I hear.
Well, I'm not going to buy it if I can't beat it.
But yeah, that was
Why would I torture myself?
Yeah, I mean, it was some... Yeah, you can't really do that anymore. You can't, like, rent...
I think the reason most NES games were so hard was just that it was still... programming was still very primitive, and a lot of games are hard for reasons the developers did not intend, like just bad controls.
I almost wish there was an NES version of MK1 and 2. I wonder what it would have looked like.
Well, there are fan-made like fake versions of it. Out there, so you can see for yourself.
I think the NES port of MK1 was considered, but ultimately abandoned very early on, if I'm remembering my trivia right.
I know that Tabmock has reviewed some of these like fake ROMs.
Yeah, I'm just glad. From what I've read about that Mortal Kombat Nitro, I'm kind of glad that didn't happen. But I guess that's a discussion for another time.
Yeah.
I think we've covered MK2 sufficiently, have we?
I think we've pretty thoroughly covered it all, yeah.
Yeah, so...
the only thing is that I wish... Because MK2 getting a comic is the reason we know exactly how MK1 ends, and we don't have that for MK2 because there is no MK3 comic.
Yeah, and the intro of MK3 doesn't even tell you what happened at the end of MK2. Because the opening of MK2 does tell you Liu Kang won the tournament in MK1, but the opening of MK3 doesn't tell you anything about what happened.
I mean, we get the bios. The bios are a little vague, but they give you the gist of like Liu Kang seems to have beaten Shao Kahn, and everyone like rushed home because they knew Khan was going to invade anyway.
Well, Katana was the one who told them, yeah, they're planning to resurrect something. She probably doesn't know that it's her own mother. Yeah. But it's like, that's why I was so angry at MK9, because I think they really did not understand how important Katana was to these, like, the story of this, this trilogy.
Well,
it's also
Bias understood. He knew what he was doing, because, like, why else would he put Katana in Liu Kang's arcade ending?
Yeah.
Like, he really wanted to, like... I mean, on top of the fact that he knew she was going to be an ultimate anyway, so he didn't need to sell it too much. He's like, look, the main character of MK3 kind of is Katana's mom, so Katana's going to show up and be important to this stuff. But also, like, to have her specifically in Liu Kang's ending was meant to be like, yo, these two have a connection. There's a thing going on here. The movie did not make up the romance.
Yeah. Which I think our old MKO friend Zaldun84, if you don't know who he is, he's a big Katana fan, but he does not like Lutana. He kind of said, yeah, but it wasn't proof it was romantic or anything like that.
Yeah, you're delusional. MK4 is literally...
She asked him to marry her!
What is that? Like, I'm sorry, but no. Like, that's literally... Please come and let's be king and queen of Outrule together, of Videnia together. Yeah. How is that not?
And I think the only difference with MK5 was that apparently Lou wouldn't have rejected it; he would have accepted it.
Yeah. But before we forget, we're just talking about like how much of a shame it is that MK3 didn't have a comic. But in addition to the aforementioned sentence that I brought up a little while ago, like. Where the MK3 attract mode says, frustrated at repeated attempts at taking her through tournament battle. That plural, I've always taken as referring to both MK1 and 2, and all the tournaments beforehand. Yeah. But you also have to look at Liu Kang's MK3 bio, which specifically states, Liu Kang has thwarted Shao Kahn's schemes in the past, and is the greatest threat to Khan's rule.
Yeah, that's the thing is that...
That's the confirmation you need right there that Liu Kang... I
get frustrated, because Tobias will post stuff about, like, his intentions or his ideas, and they will directly contradict bios and endings he himself wrote. So, like, the idea that he didn't actually fight Shao Kahn, that the tournament didn't end and it rolled straight into Invasion, isn't possible with the way MK3's bios play out.
MK3 happens, probably like a few months after MK2?
I think it might be a week or two. Like, it's a very short turnaround, because, like, the idea of all they had time to do was Liu and Kung Lao were putting out phone calls, and they didn't get people, they couldn't get people to travel in time to reach them. And Jax and Sonya have a meeting with their top brass, and they get laughed out of the room, and then Jax goes and gets his arms.
Yeah.
But, like, we know from Special Forces that the arms or some prototype version of them were already built. He just needed to put them on.
Yeah.
Johnny filmed another movie in a couple of weeks.
We're going to get to MK3, and we'll save that for next time.
Yeah, but it just seems like it was really quick. Like, they got home in a hurry. They were trying to prepare for this thing they knew was coming, and they were still caught with their pants down anyway.
Yeah.
Which says to me that they had a very short period of time. Like, there was maybe a week between the end of MK2 and the start of the invasion.
Yeah. I'm just saying, man, Johnny has all these scripts lying around, and they're like, he's worked really hard on them, and he's proud of them, he's waiting for the right moment, and then he comes back to the tournament and goes, brilliant, and changes like 5 details. Filming takes a week.
I was going to bring that up. We were talking about, so Johnny had time to make a movie, whereas Liu Kang only had time to walk home, find the temple in ruins, and go straight to the tournament.
I think maybe filming it or something.
I believe so. If you are generous, you can make a motion picture from 0 to complete in about a year. So what I think happened is, we know Johnny was brought home by Raiden, and in the comic you can see that Raiden flies him through a portal and dumps him in the sea for Jax to pick up.
Yeah.
But Liu Kang probably went home by the boat.
Yeah.
Like, he probably the island was collapsing, so he ran to the dock and got on the Nether ship. Now, the Nether ship has to sail through the Lost Sea, which is this Bermuda Triangle-ass Twilight Zone part of the island. It's part of the fact that it's half in Earthrealm and half in Outworld. Maybe time passes funny in the Lost Sea. Maybe Johnny Cage got home in a week because Raiden flew him through a portal and Jax took him home on an army boat.
Yeah.
But Liu Kang took months to get home because he was sailing through a weird pocket dimension.
Well, Tobias did say that time's a little different in Outworld compared
to... but we're talking about Shang's Island specifically.
Yeah.
So, I think maybe Johnny got home right away, got to work on that movie. Maybe there's like 9 months before Liu Kang finally gets back to the temple. But it doesn't feel like 9 months to him. It feels like however long it takes to sail a boat. And he just doesn't notice that his hair is growing longer until he gets to the other side of it.
One thing I think I forgot to mention is, I think at the end of MK1, like when he's on the boat, that's when he puts the headband on. That's my idea.
I like to imagine that he's wearing the headband when he fights Shang. I know it's not like there's a picture of Liu dragon kicking Shang in the intro of MK2. And he's just the MK1 sprite. But if I was redoing it, I would add a headband to that sprite.
Okay. I think we've covered everything.
I think I would actually have it so that there was a statue of the Great Kung Lao somewhere on that island in the Warrior Shrine. And Shang being the sentimental... Well, not sentimental. I think that Shang is kind of a sentimentalist who likes to reminisce over his victories. And I think that he would have kept the Great Kung Lao's original headband, like we suggested last time. And he put it on that fucking statue. And like after Liu Kang flying kicks Shao Kahn, after Liu Kang flying kicks Shang Tsung's ribs in, he walks over it, and he's just like, "This does not belong to you." That's when he puts it on and leaves.
Yeah.
I mean, you could do it that way. It would convey the same as my idea of Goro holding onto it.
Yeah, because I think we discussed he took it from Goro and then
Yeah.
he put it on. Yeah.
I just feel like Goro is already wearing red, so you could probably tie it to his like sash or whatever.
Yeah,
Oh,
I think in the MK1
it's the clasp around the neck piece that he uses to bind his cape together.
I think in MK1 comic you do see Goro kind of reaching for Kung Lao's headband or something after he beats him or something. Or at least it looked like that.
Yeah. In the comic, like he's holding him up by the headband as he's delivering the finishing blow.
So I assume he took it off him there. Yeah.
But also, like in that comic, the colors are a little different, and the headband is brown.
Oh, okay.
But every time we've seen Great Kung Lao since then, the headband has been red. So
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I probably should get going because I got to get up tomorrow. I'm sure you guys good, or you got anything left to say?
we've covered it. I'm done with MK2.
I unfortunately also have to get up tomorrow. I wish I didn't, but I do.
Yeah,
I would simply like to sleep forever.
Let's
but
just
I
say
can't.
this. I think MK3 is going to be maybe 3 hours when we get.
Yeah, we should just form a fucking itinerary.
MK4 will be short because there's not much to talk about there, in my opinion.
MK4 will either be short or long because it's like it's open season on this story, man.
Well, yeah, the more of a blank slate they give you, the more you get to like make shit up.
Yeah.
You're like, this is what I would do.
But I mean, we can probably talk about the 3D games in one session. I think Deadly Alliance.
Maybe.
I do have
At least Deadly Alliance and Deception in one.
On our Discord, I actually we have pins in the lore channel of like me going through the bios and endings and figuring out every event in the order it happened in those two games.
Maybe we could do Deadly Alliance and Deception in one video, but Armageddon might be its own video.
I think you're making the classic blunder of assuming we won't just talk forever.
Yeah.
Let's just take things as they come.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, gonna sign off. We'll see you guys next time. We'll talk about MK3.
See you later, nerds.
Have a nice day.
Yeah.